The Douglas Coleman Show is made possible with support from Seth David Radwell, a recent guest on the program and author of American Schism, How the Two Enlightenments Hold the Secret to Healing Our Nation, released this past July. As Publishers Weekly writes in its recent glowing book life review of American Schism, business executive Radwell's epic debut examines the historical influences that have led to what he sees as the collapse of politics in the United States. Seth Radwell makes the case that the current chasm between the American right and left can be traced back to the 18th century's Age of Enlightenment and the basic tenets of liberty, equality, and reason. American Schism provides a historical perspective that can help us fight today's unreason with reason and bridge current-day divides. American Schism by Seth David Radwell is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold. For more information, go to AmericanSchismBook.com.
It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Stephen J. Spence. Hi, Stephen. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. So you've got a book out called Money, Plain and Simple, What the Institutions and the Elite Don't Want You to Know, which sounds like an interesting book. Before we get to your book, can you just give us a little bit of your backstory? Give us a little of your background, and then we'll talk about your book.
Okay. So first and foremost, I don't want anybody to be deceived about me. I'm not an economist. I am in aircraft maintenance by trade, and I am currently now a real estate investor. What led me to this topic of this book to write it is because when I became an investor, I really kind of had an idea, so I had to learn how to do it really quick to try to minimize my losses. And my world started bumping into the financial world, and I just couldn't believe what I was discovering. And here I am in my mid-50s at the time, and seeing things that I'd never seen before. And I've been exposed to quite a bit of the financial world, and just kept digging deeper and deeper to discover these topics. And I finally said, I have to share this information with everybody. Everybody should know this, all ordinary people. So that's what I wrote a book for, is for the ordinary person to understand, because we all need to know this, because it's the financial system is very fragile at the moment, and a lot of people don't realize how fragile it is.
When you say fragile, what do you mean by that?
Well, if in the world I'm looking into now, because I'm very mesmerized with what's going on with the banking system, and so I'm kind of in tune with everything. I don't know what most people listen to, but there's things called like the Great Reset that are being talked about now, or Jubilee, just financial crashes, and I'm not predicting any of those. I'm just saying that these are the topics of today in the financial world. When you see money being in the United States being thrown out for no work at all now at rates that I cannot fathom, and there's no productivity along with it, what does that do to our nation? And when our nation falls, when I say falls, but when our money is corrupted, it affects the whole world. So, and that's what I explained in the book, because I talk about world reserve currency and how everything is tied to the U.S. dollar. And these are things I just discovered, and I just feel like I had to break it down in a simple format. And short, because people's lives are busy too, and so I didn't want to write this big novel, because finance and economy is very complex and boring. So I try to take that away.
Well, I would agree with you, and I also agree with you that everything is tied to the United States, and not just the currency, but even when you look at the fiasco that was the pullout of Afghanistan, what I found to be interesting about that was the reaction by the European community. And it's always assumed that the U.S. is going to be a very strong player in world affairs. And when we showed what essentially appeared to be weakness in pulling out, they reacted in a sort of a fearful way because they said, wow, the U.S. isn't there for us anymore. And we were always there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it works that way with finance, too, where, like you said, the U.S. dollar there's many currencies around the world that are pegged to the U.S. dollar. So whichever way the U.S.
Correct.
dollar goes, up or down, their currency follows. And if our currency becomes less than the gold standard, it's going to impact countries around the world. There's going to be like a domino effect. And,
Correct.
I've even seen other countries switching to euro now rather than using the U.S. dollar as their primary sort of default currency aside from their own, particularly third world countries where their currency isn't particularly strong. I'll give you an example. Years ago, I went to Laos and to Cambodia, and both of those places, although they have their own currencies, preferred to take U.S. dollars. And everybody was using U.S. dollars because it seemed to benefit them. You could give them the exact same amount in Lao Kip or Cambodian reals for $1 or $5, but they wanted the $5 bill rather than the money in their own currency.
Yeah.
I always found that kind of curious. Go ahead.
Well, and a quick explanation on that is, because each country has their central banks, and depending on the rate of production of money that they do, that creates the let's just say inflation of that particular currency. Argentina is a good example of how they've had to reset. I don't quote me on these numbers, but I want to say they've had to reset their currency at least 3 times over the last 10 years, maybe. It's been more. It's a common thing for them, and so they look for something more stable, because if your money runs away in value, meaning going to nothing, it's concerning. So what are you working for? What are you saving for? If you put money in the bank and it becomes zero, what's the point?
What's the point?
Of saving money.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I think there was.
So the dollar.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Well, just to finish that thought, the dollar, like everyone around the world sees, it has stability, and it's still viewed as stability. And one of the things I quoted in the book is the dollar's sick as well. But I describe it as it's the most healthiest patient in the hospital, or it's the cleanest shirt in the dirty laundry. It's all bad.
Yeah, and when you brought up another point before about where the government now is paying people more to stay home than they were making at work. Although I think that came to an end on September 1st, some of that unemployment. I'm not quite sure, but there was a point.
Yeah, most of it has.
Yeah. There was a point where people were being paid to stay home, and businesses were dying because they couldn't get workers. They couldn't get employees, particularly restaurants, I think were really hurting.
Yep.
The other country that I was going to mention was Turkey. And at one point, years ago, $1 US was worth 1 million Turkish lira. And they finally reset it to 1 to 1, I think. I don't know how long ago, but that must have been a nightmare. Imagine,
Well, they just recently went through a crash as well, and they could not, everyone, because they love gold over there, and they all they could do is there was a shortage of gold, because they knew that's how their money would be hold its value is in some sort of precious metal, which they favor gold, of course.
Okay, so your book is called Money, Plain and Simple: What the Institutions and the Elite Don't Want You to Know. Well, give me an example. What don't they want us to know?
All right, let's start with the money creation. So what I describe what I couldn't believe. I guess I had a belief that I kind of created in my own mind, as thinking that the banking system takes deposits from people that have excess money, and then they, a lot of people do this, and then they collectively loan it back out for a profit. and they pay you the dividends as savings and interest, and they make money, so they charge more in interest. And that's the way I thought. I didn't really give it much thought. Then I started, like I said, getting into investing. You start learning where money is loaned out. Then I found out, no, that's not true. What is true is they create the money out of thin air and then charge you interest on it. So that was one of the things I couldn't believe was happening. The saying is all money, or when I say money, I really mean currency. So, but all currency that is created is debt, is all debt. So theoretically, we're in a Keynesian model, and so what that means is that you can never pay it off with the money in existence because it's on interest, and you always need more than what you borrow to pay it off. So therefore, all money created, you need more money to pay the debt, the original debt. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, it does, but it seems like one of those, I forget what it's called, but it's the staircase that leads to nowhere, and you just keep climbing and climbing, but they made a reference to it in that movie Inception, in that dream sequence. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but I forget what it's called, but there's a specific word, a term for that. And it just seems like that's where we're going. I mean, we used to be, and you'd have to go back to Franklin Roosevelt, but we used to be on the gold standard, and the money was equivalent to money or gold that was on deposit in Fort Knox. And we got off of that during his time, and he started printing money like a madman because we needed the injection into the economy. But at some point, this whole thing is going to collapse because there is no substance behind the money. Like you said, it's just all debt, of which China owns a good deal of U.S. debt. And if they decide to call the debt, what are we going to do? Mm-hmm. So it's very fragile, I think, is what you said at the beginning, right?
Yeah. Yes. Well, it's like the other thing I didn't realize is, if I were to invest in the stock market or with my 401k when I was working for a company, they would take money out of my paycheck and they would contribute money with it, right, and buy shares with it. What I found out was there's leveraging going on, and then what's happening is people are taking debt to purchase stocks, and it's quite a bit of that going on. And a lot of people are making a lot of money when the stock market goes up, but they don't cover when the stock market goes down. And that's why we see huge moves to the downside when things start going, because they call that margin calls. And so what a margin call is when there begins to be a sell-off and the person that loans you money to purchase shares of a particular stock, and they say, we have an agreed price that this is our margin, and if it goes below that, you're going to have to either sell or contribute more money to cover, because they don't want to cover it. And usually it's the sell, or they sell something else to cover whatever they decide to do. And before you know it, it sets off a chain reaction, and that's why they have these circuit breakers in the stock market. So the Fed have this thing called the plunge protection team, and then they keep it from falling like that, but sometimes it gets out of their control. It's good when it goes up, but what scares me or concerns me is that so many people don't know that this is going on, and you as the 401k holder or whatever investor that don't know that's doing what you were told to do, because the government encourages it, you're carrying all the risk. Because the people that lost were the people that had the shares, and that's what I want people to wake up to. Is they're the risk holders, but the people investing their money, the trade companies, those are the ones, or the stockbrokers, I should say, they're the ones that they're not carrying the risk. They're participating in the risk and creating the risk, but so it's not as safe and sound as we like to think it is.
Well, that's true enough. And I think the term is called appetite for risk when you're considering your investments. Yeah. So what do you recommend for people to do, for people that have limited appetite for risk? Where would you think is a reasonably safe place to put your money, other than the mattress?
Well, that's and you should have. I'm gonna preface that I don't give financial advice. But my thing is, that's the whole purpose of this book. I wanted to show that it's not as it is a fragile system, and I lay out the reasons why. And this is not just a United States thing; it's a global thing. There's things happening in China right now with the Evergrande situation. I don't know how that's going to play out, but it's just got my attention, and I'm watching it, and a lot of people are watching it because there's a lot of defaults happening on the Chinese economy. So that's something to watch out for, because all it takes is that one last straw because we're all connected, and that's what people need to be. I won't say fearful, but just aware of. So the purpose of this book is that, and so my answer is educate, right? At least know the risks that you're taking, and at least know the options that you have. And then, because in the back of the book, the last chapter, I say, what now? What do I do with this information? And how? So I list out a lot of people that I started to learn from. Be it books, lovely YouTube stuff in there, and I list all these things out and people can decide for themselves where they feel comfortable where their money should be. And you should not. My advice is you should be diversified, and you should know why you're diversified.
Oh, I agree. I mean, there's the old saying about don't put all your eggs in one basket. I've certainly had my share of losing money in the stock market. And I was always curious as to when you do lose the money, when the shares go from a $10 per share to $5 per share, where does the money go? I mean, there was money there. Where did it just vanishes into thin air?
No, because when you sell something, there's a buyer on the other end. So somebody's waiting to purchase it at your price that you're selling.
Well, that's true. But I paid $10 and they're going to buy it at $5. Where'd the other $5 go? Yeah. It just vanished.
I don't have all the answers on that.
Well, nobody does, because it's a fictitious number. The price of a share of stock is a fictitious number in the sense that, well, maybe fictitious is the wrong word, arbitrary. Okay, it has no real value other than if people agree that that's what the price should be. Yeah,
and that's called counterparty risk, right?
Yeah.
So what you have to sell it's only valued with what someone is willing to pay for it.
Right, which is the basis of all market.
Correct.
If I could convince you to buy this ballpoint pen from me for $500 and you wanted to pay it, I'd be happy to take the money.
The pen is worth $500, correct.
Exactly. And you can go to Walmart and get the same pen for $1.19, but that's irrelevant. It's all a matter of demand and people willing to pay. But okay. On your bio, it says that you have a real estate investment company. Real estate has always traditionally been reasonably safe, at least up until the 2008 crash. And then it kind of exposed that whole underbelly of speculative real estate buying. But I mean, in terms of people who would purchase their first home and maybe they would live in it for 20 years. And then when their kids grew up, and I mean, this was a very traditional American lifestyle. Their kids would grow up, they'd become empty nesters. They might make a nice profit on the sale of that house. They'd downsize, buy a condo somewhere, or move to a warmer climate or something like that. And they always had the money secured in their home. Do you think that's a viable option these days?
Well, right now, if you own a home, you're doing very well. If you're trying to buy a home, well, unless you have a lot of money, but or currency, you're struggling with that, right? Because the down payments, the bank mortgaging terms, 20% down, or they have programs, of course, but for the typical buyer, it'd be 20% down. So the higher the price of the home, or the value of the home, the more you have to come up with cash. And truth be told, people are struggling now just to save money, because there's nowhere to put your money without it being at risk. or stagnating. And inflation, if you let it sit in the bank, inflation's getting it, right? So
true.
It's so I always say when people ask me about this, I ask them, what's your why? So and what do you want to do with it? So if you, like some people, like you said, have a home for 20 years, they have some equity. They probably have some really good equity in it right now. But and the banks are offering to refinance it for you, and you can we call that cash out refis. So when you cash out refi, what do you do with that money? Do you reinvest it, or do you go on a cruise, or go on a travel around the world? Those aren't so. My mindset as an investor, that's where I had to change my mindset, because I used to blow money. If you when you read the book, you'll see I used to just spend it as quickly as I got it, and I didn't think of it. Now I look at every dollar as an employee of mine, right? I got to put it to work for it to bring back more dollars. So that's the only way I see surviving in this world without working yourself to death.
We do have to wrap this up. We are out of time. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
I don't have it up and running yet, but I do have a Telegram page, if I can give that out.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, it's t.me, as in Mike Echo, /money, plain and simple. And I'm posting there just articles that are relevant to the book and with what's going on in today's news. And I try to post just to keep my eye on the ball, and anyone else that wants to follow. I invite you to join me there and comment and ask questions after you with these topics.
Okay.
I believe that we need to be ordinary people need to gather together and hold our leaders accountable to how they're treating our money.
Well, true enough. No argument from me.
Yeah.
All right, Stephen. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you. Nice talking to you. Best of luck with your book. I hope it does very well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Douglas. Thank you for your time.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on The Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Douglas Coleman's Don't Do a Podcast is a dryly humorous rant about Douglas's pet peeve, the unrelenting torrent of podcasts hitting the web on a constant basis. As technology has put podcasting within the reach of anyone, many wholly unqualified people have taken the plunge. This witty polemic tries to persuade them from broadcasting their drivel using Douglas's brand of sarcastic humor. Now on Amazon, only 99 cents.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
Hey, this is Ray Powers. Don't touch anything. You've got it right where you need it. Tuned in to The Douglas Coleman Show. You heard me.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Amanda Korbelas. Hello, Amanda. How are you?
Excellent. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. So, you've got some poetry books. Let's see. Your latest one is your third book, called 1111. Is that the right title?
Yes.
Okay.
That is the right title.
What's the significance of that?
Okay, well, so 1111, it was a simple cover with just a moth on it. It came to me in a dream as I woke up at 1111. So when I looked into it, moths represent transformation, hidden knowledge, inner wisdom, and shadow work. They're connected to the moon, feminine and yin energies, and have intuitive discoveries. They show up to help you discover your hidden desires and awaken your inner true self. So that's why I wanted this as my final book to represent the moth and 1111.
So the first, I guess we're going to have to go back to the first two books. Are the books connected in the sense that they sort of represent your life?
Yes, 100%. So my first book I wrote in 2016. It's called Through Her Eyes. So that was when I was dealing with a lot of mental health, trying to keep sober with alcoholism and other addictions, going through abusive relationships, traumas with both family and men. So the first book kind of is just poetry, walking myself through all that pain and darkness. Getting to book number 2, this one's actually featured in the chapters Indigo over here in Canada. I published that and did a book signing in 2018. It's called Angel Wings and Other Things. So that was the second book to the collection, and it's just showing how I took the steps. I'm starting to understand how to heal, met a proper guy, starting to just get rid of all my addictions and become sober. And then this final book, 1111, I'm finally here, transcending, spiritual awakening, stuff like that.
Okay, well, sounds good. So did your writing come out as a way to, like a cathartic thing for you, or were you writing already before all of this was happening?
So I was always writing already since I was little, but I started to know and learn a pattern about myself, kind of like a diary, but it was more rhyming and getting my thoughts down on paper with how I was feeling that day, especially just dealing with depression and anxiety and stuff like that. I noticed that a lot of my writing was dark, and it was just trying to find the right voice to start healing that darkness and trying to get more positive outcomes in writing out.
You've also got a website, Spirit Babe Company. What exactly is that?
So during COVID and the pandemic, obviously with work not allowing us to go back and stuff like that, I decided to open a small business. It's pretty much just clothing, handmade gemstone bracelets and crystals and stuff for kind of like a spiritual awakening. I always knew I was First Nations, but it took this year that my mom and I kind of dove in a little more to our heritage, and we're just trying to bring in just a fresh outlook on spiritual healing and spiritual gifts and stuff that we could give to the community, which kind of brings out our heritage of being Native.
Oh, okay, great. Was there one particular thing that happened to you that sort of pushed you from, for lack of a better analogy, from the second to the third book, where you said the first two were sort of the struggles and the trauma, and then the third one was sort of the moth becoming, free, like the phoenix bird, right? Rising from the ashes. Was there one particular thing that happened to you?
I would say definitely looking back at how I was such kind of a hurricane, a mess. I got pregnant actually in October 2019. That's when I was forced to kind of take a seat and start to repair relationships outside of family and friendships, addictions and traumas. But most importantly, I had to sit down and heal my mental health and who I was as a person. This pregnancy really made me sit down, and I was forced to be sober. I wasn't allowed having an alcoholic drink, or wasn't invited out to go with friends kind of thing with my old friendships kind of stuff like that. I was forced to sit there and really say, who do I want to be as a person? And this child that I'm about to bring into the world deserves someone who's strong, who can be there for him and just show them the steps of life. And if I'm either passed away dead because my addictions were getting so intense, or what have you, I wouldn't be here to bring Dallas into the world. So it just kind of made me grasp. And then once I got a taste of being sober, it really kept me wanting to be here and show other people that you can do it too.
How did you get sober? Because everybody has different stories about what it took. For you, it was the pregnancy, but once you got pregnant, then you really had to do it. You know, I mean, what was your process?
It's really hard to say because it's probably every time I wanted to quit drinking or wanted to quit something, I would the next week, once I start feel better after that hangover, just feeling depressed, I would go back at it again on a weekend and go out with my friends. But once I kind of got pregnant, I feel a lot of eyes were on me, and I hate being judged or talked about. So I think it really made me want this. I reached out for help. I got my doctor to get me into some programs. It was more talking and venting my story and opinions with other people who were going through the same thing. So I got into a lot of groups that I could share my story of how I'm feeling, because the first month or so, it wasn't a good time for me. I wasn't feeling good. I was very depressed. I kept thinking, is this what I really want in life? Can I really raise a child right now? But once I kind of got past that month, it started to get a lot easier for me.
Okay, well, that's great. So how long has it been?
So Dallas is 14 months now, so add 10 months to that. So it's a year, it's about 2 years now. 2
years of sobriety?
Yes.
Okay, and no drinking at all?
I did have 2 slips. It wasn't with hard liquor, it was just having a few beers, but that's still a slip. But apart from that, no cigarettes, no drugs or anything of that sort, just a couple slips with beer, but not hard alcohol.
Oh, well, that's pretty good. That's pretty commendable. It's not easy. I know I dealt with this with my father, and at one point in my life, I was getting to the point where it was going to get me if I didn't get it. So I quit. Basically haven't drank at all in, I don't know, 8 years, 9 years. I think...
that's amazing.
I think the last time I had a beer was about 2 years ago, and it was on my birthday, and I had a half of it. And kind of went, oh, it just doesn't taste very good.
Yeah. Exactly. And then you probably think to yourself, did I really need that half a beer, or did I really need it? And you kind of sit there and you're like, I'll get them next time.
Yeah, it didn't taste good. I thought, okay, I'll just have the beer because I was eating and I like to have the beer with food. But it just, it didn't do it.
And definitely probably just your past memories of engaging with it, like how you said you love having it with food. I loved having a smoke after dinner, or I loved having a glass of red wine with my steak. But now that once you take that away, you kind of miss it. But once you kind of get it back, you're like, oh, I actually don't really miss this memory I had.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not even just the taste of the alcohol. It's all the memories that it conjures up again. And
exactly.
Yeah, it takes you down that path mentally. And yeah, I know that. It's a good thing when you get away and you can really look at it and go, yeah, I'm happy that that's no longer sitting on my shoulder.
Exactly. Especially it's nice seeing how far I've even come and looking back at the friends that haven't even moved a chapter up. They're still kind of sitting in that same spot. And it just makes me realize I did make the right choice to kind of evolve with new people, new family members, new friendships, and to grow as a person. When you kind of see those people sitting in the same spot, you realize that, no, you need to keep growing, kind of just like the butterfly and metaphorically metamorphosis kind of thing.
Right, exactly. So how's your baby?
He is amazing. He's 14 months now. We just put him in daycare, this little
great.
preschool program. So it's giving me more time. I just signed up for school as well. So I'm in school. I'm doing a small business. I'm writing on the side, getting this 3rd book going. And little Dallas is amazing. He's starting to talk a little bit, and he's walking now.
That's fantastic. Well, that's going to be, at that age, it's going to be an amazing experience for you as you watch him grow and get into more things, you know?
Oh, yes. I for sure need my energy for him. The way he goes up and down the stairs, and he's just into so many things. I'm just exhausted, but a good exhaustion.
Oh, yeah. It's probably the most rewarding thing anybody can do is to be a parent. We've got time for a little excerpt. Do you want to read something from one of your books? A short one?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I could get, I have a couple poems. So I have this one that kind of starts at the beginning of 11:11, and it goes like this. Hi, how are you? We haven't spoken a while. Did you end up taking my advice, finally falling asleep that night? Because I remember what bothered you, and it has kept me up too. Did we hit some of those goals we last talked about? Learn not to shout and to walk away when someone no longer serves you a purpose? I hope so. You were too much like a wolf, but too scared to hold on to hope, that I worried this whole time, but I know you did just fine. So here it is one last time. Hi, how are you? We haven't spoken a while. This may be a drunk dial to someone special, my younger self.
Oh, that's great. Do you have it's not finished? I'm sorry.
Oh, yep. And then I just have one more poem that kind of just ends 11:11, and I'll just read that.
Oh,
and
okay.
Then,
all right.
So this one just ends 11:11, and it's, I'm not here for a long time, but in this short life, I learned what it takes to be a good human. I mastered love and empathy, honesty and integrity. I am certain between these delicate worlds of chaos and divine healing, I'll be back in this realm of heaven and earth, but with wings next time.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice. We do have to wrap this up now. Do you have a website other than your shop, or do you want to just put that one out?
I do have another website. It's www.akwriting.com, and that has all my poetry there.
akwriting.com. Okay. Well, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story, and best of luck with your
Thank you so
books.
much for having